So next up, we're going to be checking out the Battle of Samar. Odds, what are those? By Drachinifel. I don't know what we're getting into here. I was told it's not like his previous video on the Mark 14 torpedoes. And I really hope that's not just YouTube being nice, because one, that would be a very weird time to start. And two, I remember the Mark 14 torpedo video. Oh God, the blood pressure I had spiking right there. Oh man. Let's jump into this. It's probably going to be weird. I will leave a like in advance though. Wait, I hadn't subscribed yet. That's embarrassing. Don't be me. Make sure I'm subscribed to this guy. He's minutes. Wow, that's kind of like my estimation of time. I thought that was mostly a
stiff morning breeze ruffles the hair.
I hate this paint job. I know why it's done, to make it look weird on anyone looking at it. But I hate this entire image. Cool ship though.
The flight deck crew aboard USS St. Lo. The small escort carrier is expecting a calm day of flying, small anti-submarine patrols, and the occasional airstrike in support of the amphibious assault that's taking place to the west. A long way off to the north, the Third Fleet is charging after a reported Japanese aircraft carrier strike group.
World War II then.
And has taken every cruiser, destroyer, battleship and fleet carrier that Admiral Halsey can muster with them.
Why do I recognize that name?
If the flight deck crew expected to see anything afloat, apart from one of their own small escort group, then presumably it would be the returning units of the Third Fleet, once they'd smashed yet another Japanese fleet. Then
I don't know why, but I feel like there's about to be, and then the Fire Nation attacked moment, where things go really bad. Considering this is literally the documentary about a battle, yeah, that's probably a thing.
Came a report over the radio from one of St. Lo's pilots.
Here we go.
He was reporting seeing ships, and they weren't American.
Oh.
Worse still, they were close.
How did they get close?
Incredulous, Admiral Sprague demanded confirmation. And circling in closer, the pilot radioed back,
I can see pagoda masts. I see the biggest meatball flag on the biggest battleship I ever saw.
He wasn't wrong either. That
Pagoda masts? This is me not knowing nearly enough about battleship designs to tell what's going on, but I do recognize the Yamato, mostly because it's literally written on the side of the image. Wasn't this literally the largest battleship in Japan's navy? I just realized how big those guns are by comparison to the rest of the ship, and so they have all these anti-aircraft right here, and then there's the 3 batteries of fuck you cannons with 3 shots each. God damn.
meatball flag was flying from the vast battleship Yamato.
Meatball flag? Oh, red dot.
All 70,000 plus tons of her was steaming at speed straight towards them, and she wasn't alone. The US commanders received the news in a moment of stunned silence.
Well, fuck.
Then all hell broke loose as off in the distance anti-aircraft fire was spotted as the anti-submarine patrol aircraft made optimistic and recklessly brave assaults. 4 aircraft in total, armed with depth charges, attacked over a dozen enemy fleet units. Then the seas around the escort carriers of Taffy 3 began to erupt in vast geysers of water as massive battleship-grade shells began.
This is going to sound really dumb, but I say a lot of dumb things, so it's probably par for course. I don't know why I recognize Taffy 3, but I'm almost certain I've heard that name used before. In Cancol Fix I've read, so, yeah. I said it was dumb. I'm not wrong about that.
To land all around them. The Battle of Samar had well and truly begun. The Battle of Samar was...
Of course it was the Philippines, that makes sense. Which one of these islands was Samar? Or is it an island or a layaway? Or like a water lane between it? There's Mindoro, Panagan, Negros, Panye. Wait, there's more than one? Oh, that's Mindoro over here, and that's Mindina over here. I just misread it.
One of 4 distinct battles fought in the area of the Philippines in late October 1943. They're grouped together because they were all fought as part of one single Japanese operation.
Oh!
Operation Shogo One. This came in response to the US invasion of the Philippines and envisioned a three-prong offensive, with a decoy force in the north to draw away the bulk of the defending US forces, and then two attacking forces, one in the centre and one in the south, to catch the American landing craft and the rest of the invasion fleet in a pincer movement.
Honestly, that's not a bad plan because it's a standard big stuff up here, stuff you want to kill down here. Shoot both. Also, Pylo, Eric, can cool fix or how you first learned about this battle? Okay, so I'm not the only one. I didn't actually know about the Battle of Samar, but I do know a bit about some of the battleships that went down. For example, I know that the Yamato does eventually sink. I'm assuming it's either this battle or a later one. I just don't know if it's here or not where it happens.
And destroy them. Due to the sheer scale of the operation and the distance between various forces, there was no overall commander to the Japanese efforts.
There wasn't?
And
there also looks like there's not an overall one on ours as well. Is that MacArthur?
American side of things, command was almost equally disorganized. Direct naval support for the landings was provided by Admiral Kinkaid's 7th Fleet, reporting to General MacArthur as overall commander.
Yep.
But the 3rd Fleet, containing most of the modern US ships and all the fleet carriers, primarily concentrated in Task Force 38, was under Admiral Halsey, reporting to Admiral Nimitz.
It's so weird hearing names that I've come accustomed to in non-normal ways. For example, Nimitz, I'm used to hearing and thinking, oh, it's a class. But then thinking, I'm assuming it's the last guy because he was the last one mentioned. That's actually the guy the class was named from, meaning, oh, he probably did something really amazing. Or something happened really insane around him. And then there's just hearing Halsey. It's like, okay, hearing that outside of Halo in its own right is just kind of disorienting. Kinkaid, I think I know the least about. And then MacArthur, who just... Yeah, the less said, the better. So there's a lot going on right now.
This split in command would prove almost fatal. The southern Japanese force consisted of the older and slower battleships Fuso and Yamashiro, and let's just say that that particular part of the expedition didn't end too well for the Imperial Japanese Navy. But even before that, things had not exactly started well for the Japanese in attack.
Oh?
The center force, by far the most powerful...
Because what happened in World War II is the dynamic change from battleships being the be-all, end-all to aircraft carriers being the be-all, end-all. And this is probably the battle where that became more apparent because we explicitly saw the image of the Yamato showing the big battleship and being told it was steaming in. So this is probably where air power is going to show its big advantages.
Full of all the Japanese fleets involved, was a truly impressive sight as it left harbour. 5 battleships, including both Yamato and Musashi, accompanied by the normally impressive, but in this circumstance dwarfed, Nagato, along with the converted battlecruisers Kongo and Haruna. No less than 10 heavy cruisers, 2 light cruisers, and 15 destroyers would accompany them. But unfortunately for this very impressive collection of surface warships, 2 Gato-class submarines, USS Data and USS...
I'm sorry, one of the classes was Gato? They have a cat-class submarine? Because El Gato is the cat in Spanish. I'm not sure if that's what's intended for an American submarine, but I find it hilarious. I'm going to stick by that one, man. Oh, man.
Dace noticed them coming past
My
their
nose
position.
is killing me.
Thanks in part to the generally terrible nature of Japanese anti-submarine warfare.
Really?
Even this late into the war.
Okay, so it's late into the war, so the issues of... Wait, if it's late into the war, the issues with planes being the be-all, end-all probably should have already been achieved at this point. And maybe the Mark 14's torpedoes could also have been fixed, so maybe the American submarines could have actually been useful. And then there's the entire consideration that unironically they might not have needed to have good anti-submarine early on, because when American subs started firing early on, they would bounce off the hulls. I wish everything I just said was a joke, but I saw the previous video from this guy. I know. Oh, God.
The two submarines managed to sink the cruisers Otago and Maya and cripple Takao, which was forced to withdraw, taking a pair of destroyers with her as escort. Losing nearly a third of the heavy cruisers, including Admiral Kurita's flagship, the Otago, was not an especially auspicious start to the operation.
So not only did the Admiral get to retreat, he brought destroyers with him so he wouldn't be sunk by opportunistic attacks, but overall weakened their entire force. I've heard a lot of things about how the entire motivation of the Japanese military was based on do it for the country and also meth. That's not a joke, by the way. They infused it into chocolate. Yeah. There's some interesting videos covering that. But a lot of that was prompted on the kamikaze pilots, for example, to make them want to do it, to be fearless, to also, to be voluntold they're going to do it. There's actual accounts of people who were set up to do it, and, well, some were written down, some weren't, and some survived somehow. But yeah, a lot of things were going on. I just find the idea that that is the entire thing going forward for everyone. Die for your country. The Admiral retreats. Yeah. Oh, man. And Luna, among other recommendations from Gaijin Goomba, he says, How's Ninja is Donkey Kong? I have no idea what context you're even talking about here, and I'm kind of curious in my own right. Donkey Kong Ninja, that is a choice. Also, Necro, I'm just going to pull up your comment. That crashed. Ooh, and Pilo, wrong ship. The Admiral was on the one that sunk. He made it, though. Oh, okay. So he did make it through, but his actual ship sunk, so at least it wasn't that. Oh, and we made the goal. After this video, I have to let you guys choose something. And the Japanese government experimented with this by making a berserk chainsaw man eat a bunch of weak devils, like the ear devil made everyone lose their ears. Oh yeah, Chainsaw Man had a lot of weird concept things going on in it. Never really got into it just because I'm sure never really hit it for me. Looked beautiful though. I remember a story of a kamikaze plane landing at an American airbase, and the guys found the guy chained to his seat. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. There were a lot of voluntold going on. No, Federico, it was meth. It was actually the same guy from the German side. They brought him over to Japan. If you want a better idea of what's going on, what you should look into is Simon Whistler's entire deep dive of it. I'm not sure which of his 30 channels he did it on, but he actually went into considerable detail about how, yeah, no, it was meth, which also led to a post-war utter epidemic of meth users because they were telling people to consume meth to work longer in factories. Yeah. Definitely had problems from that. It's like, it's kind of obvious. And I don't mean in hindsight.
Especially with the Admiral himself having to be fished out of the water by a destroyer.
Yeah, she went down with the ship. And they got pulled out.
Report the sighting before getting itself stranded.
That's a ship. I just realized what that was. I wasn't sure I was looking at, but I think that's the gun. Oh, damn.
Trying to chase down Takao. Although the Third Fleet's carrier groups were actually quite badly out of position at this point, the carriers that were in a position to launch did so, the resulting strike badly damaging the cruiser Miyoko, which was also forced to withdraw. And the aircraft also scored hits on the three largest Japanese battleships.
Oh, damn.
The American strike aircraft would then concentrate on Musashi, sending bombs and torpedoes into her like it was going out of fashion.
Half of those probably did damage. The half, of course, being the bombs. The torpedoes, it depends what they were using.
17 bombs and 19 torpedoes, at least some of which were probably unnecessary. the mighty battleship slipped beneath the waves.
Damn.
And the rest of the Center Force turned to get out of aircraft range for the rest of the day. Halsey assumed that this meant they were retreating in total. That assumption would almost cost the Americans their invasion force.
You know, suddenly learning about this makes me consider a lot more about what the fuck is going on in Halo, oddly enough, considering they chose this guy's name. Although it would be absolutely hilarious if it was just complete coincidence Halo did that. I mean, we're just making a reference to a guy who nearly shat the bed by making the wrong call. That would be funny as all get out, man. Oh.
But, just in case, Halsey was prepared to detach 4 battleships, including Washington and Alabama, along with supporting escorts to cover the San Bernardino Strait.
Oh.
But due to unclear communications, everybody he told of this assumed that he had actually formed the force, and so nobody did anything, such as maybe move the 6 older battleships of the 7th Fleet north.
Everything they just said hurts me on a physical level. If you've ever worked in any service, any group, any business where communication is the biggest issue, someone says something, other people misinterpret it, and everyone underneath it is going... And we're just watching this right now historically happening. It's like, oh God, nothing has changed. It's not even the lack of central command. It's that they said something, they didn't clarify, everyone else thought they understood, and no one figured it out until it's probably too late. Oh.
Or arm aircraft of the escort carrier groups with their limited supply of armor-piercing bombs and torpedoes. Convinced instead that Center Force was beaten, when he received reports that the Northern Force and its carriers had been located, Halsey promptly took off with his entire fleet.
So, let me get this straight. They successfully fought off the first wave. He thought that was it. He didn't verify. He didn't get any extra reporting, even though they have planes. Who are the ones who let them know about it in the first place? They said, well, that's done. Guys, we're doing this thing. Didn't confirm that they got it. And then decided to just F off to the distraction force, which is, I'm assuming, what he's going to right now. How did this not become a rout?
Having not detached the surface warfare ships as everybody else thought he had. And so off to the north went every modern battleship and fleet carrier in the area. Even the picket destroyers were gone. Recon air...
I'm assuming he literally lucked into the fact that those ones they thought were there were never moved, so they probably were in position. I hear more and more about this, and I'm already hating so much about it.
Aircraft did in fact now spot that the Center Force was turning back toward the American landings.
Oh, never mind. They did actually see them because the planes were doing their jobs.
But Halsey or his staff seemed to have done their best to ignore or rebuff every single such report.
So it's literally him going, I made my decision, and the rest of our enemies will definitely comply with it. Oh my God! I'm occasionally glancing over to my chat right now where they're getting into a heated argument about, I think it's Jujutsu Kaisen, Attack on Titan's ending, and Chainsaw Man Phase 2, or Part 2. Because I need a distraction from things that are looking so incredibly bad that I'm like, okay, this is completely unrealistic. The massive plot hole of someone this incompetent making into leadership. If the words I just said sound like I'm lying, because it's not impossible and very much unbelievable, I don't know what you're talking about. It definitely is. There's no way I could completely understand this, and I hate every second about what I said.
Possibly because they were determined to get a final victory over what was left of Japan's carrier force. Overnight, the Southern Force would attempt to transit Surigao Strait, and since 7th Fleet hadn't moved, they ran right into it and were promptly sunk, although in the narrow confined waters, the battleships of the 7th were probably somewhat superfluous, with the destroyers and cruisers doing considerable damage with their...
Literally, this Admiral Halsey just lucked into not fucking up. It's like the guy's so incompetent, he looped around to making the right decision despite himself. Oh, God. To quote Terran, sheer human stupidity and stubbornness. This time, it is most unfortunate, and yet literally fortune, because the battleships were there.
Own guns and torpedoes. Still, it did make for a good light show and a satisfactory amount of revenge for the old battleships, who had either survived or been salvaged from Pearl Harbor.
Oh.
Okay.
That is kind of awesome. But at the same time, the fact that that's what had to happen at all.
Anticipating the potential to attack survivors, since the escort carrier formations of Taffys 1, 2, and 3 had been following the battle as best they could via radio intercepts.
Okay.
The central formation of the three was ordered to load some of its aircraft for anti-shipping strikes.
Anti-shipping strikes. So they were going after unarmed targets, apparently? Oh, that's... I'm assuming shipping strikes would be more like just attacking the back lines as opposed to attacking the defended front lines. Although I'm not sure why the back lines would not be defended, but I'm assuming it's a different loadout. Also, Pilot, I'm just going to pull up your comment. Yeah, there were some communication issues here. Even a few this video didn't cover. However, the next part is awesome. Okay, that's good. Also, some communication issues is doing a lot of work in that sentence, Pilo. I don't disagree with you. I just think it's kind of like saying surviving a nuclear blast with only a missing arm and no radiation poisoning is a bit lucky. Technically, you're right. Also, you mean anti-ship strikes, not just container ships then. Oh wait, container ships, they wouldn't be a thing this early in, would they? I think they were layer development. Oh. Okay. That depends on the ending expectations. Yeah.
The Southern Force, as well as the Northern Force, that being Taffy 3, were to maintain their usual mix of anti-submarine and shore support loadouts.
So they did actually keep the anti-submarine loadout at least. Granted, I'm not sure how many they had. And Caleb 1, thank you too. Arizona gun barrels made it to that fight. Okay, so some of them did actually make it back in time whenever someone probably told the Admiral what was going on and they finally believed it or listened.
For students of history, the commander of Taffy 3 and the overall commander of the three Taffy groups were separate individuals, but were both called Rear Admiral Sprague.
Really?
Which makes things very difficult to follow when you're trying to piece together various sources. And
so they just had two people with the same last name who were also Rear Admirals and the same thing with the same destroyer numbers, but one was 3 divisions of destroyers and one was a destroyer group of 3. Again, I've said many times that the reason you can never say in fiction, well, it happened in real life, is because bullshit like this is unbelievable anywhere else. Oh my God. Like if I wrote this into a novelization or a story, someone would be, and justifiably so, writing in the comments, this is stupid, this would never happen, unbelievable, it's completely ridiculous, and it distracts from the actual narrative. But then it happened in real life, so you should still never use it because of that very reason.
And comments. But as a result of the Third Fleet going off after the Japanese Northern Force, a decoy group with barely enough aircraft to even look like a threat, the Center Force would proceed completely unopposed through the San Bernardino Strait. 2 air search patrols, one at night and one at dawn, failed to spot them, and so they were steaming south as dawn broke to encounter the bemused force of Taffy 3. All that stood between the largest battleship human artifice had ever built and its numerous escorting ships.
You can see just the size difference, like this is the biggest one on the American side, and then most of them are longer, but not as tall. I guess just smaller and more compact in general. Yeah.
Was a handful of slow escort carriers and an even smaller group of destroyers and destroyer escorts.
Although, planes versus, I don't see a single carrier over here. But that's also because most of the planes were not the main line for the Japanese Navy, I'm pretty sure of. Also, Taryn, the universe is laughing both at us and with us, both then and today. Taryn, I agree with that one completely. Oh, God.
Yamato alone displaced slightly more than every single ship in Taffy 3 combined.
Ah! Oh, so they look taller because they're so much smaller by comparison. Got it.
And that was before the other 3 surviving battleships, 6 heavy and 2 light cruisers, and around a dozen destroyers got involved. Much, much closer fights had ended in a one-sided slaughter.
Also, yeah, so this is where Samar is. That's probably everything going around it.
And so the outcome seemed somewhat inevitable.
But planes, man. 25th October.
With reports of the Japanese forces bearing down on them confirmed,
oh, it's early too.
Rear Admiral Sprague orders his ships east, heading towards a series of rain squalls, hoping for concealment. This will hopefully delay the Japanese closing the range, and also draw them away from the much more vulnerable landing ships. Wildcat fighters and Avenger torpedo bombers begin to take off, loaded with whatever they'd been equipped with at the time, rockets, depth charges, and machine gun ammunition being the general case.
Because they didn't switch over to anti-ship yet, didn't they? Oh. Oh, God. And this brother sergeant going in the chat, how's Kurita taking L's even then? Accurate in more ways than you think, because I think it wasn't just Japanese heritage for that one. And I think the other one was also in this battle.
Not having all that much faith in his carrier's ability to actually survive the morning, the aircraft are directly ordered to land at shore-based airstrips to rearm once their initial attack runs are done by Admiral Sprague.
On the one hand, telling his pilots not to waste their lives. Nice. On the other hand, can you imagine the command staff hearing that just going, we're fucked? Understandable. I'm assuming now he survives, having said that much.
Yamato opens fire, followed shortly thereafter by...
Also, I'm being told by the ouch, Taffy, not planes. And Rob, I'll pull up your comment. 1, thank you very much. 2, fun fact, some of those old battleships were used as test subject against 2 nukes in Operation Crossroads. They survived the near direct hits. You see, here's the thing. I know about Operation Crossroads also enough from fan fiction written about Can Cole of all things that then focus on the American side. Yeah. I didn't realize any survived. I thought most of them were literally just sunk because of it. Didn't know direct hits survived that. The more you know. Huh.
The other ships in the fleet. The shell splashes are of many colours, with no fire control radar in the fleet except for a very basic unit on Yamato herself.
Wait, that's it?
The other large ships use shells with die packs to let them know which splashes were theirs. Therefore, a rainbow...
So let me get this straight. Their targeting was shooting colors and figuring out where you can go. So unironically, this is a time period where battle confetti might have been valid. If there's ever a movie about this, I don't think anyone's ever going to believe this part. I think it's hilarious.
Of pink, red, purple, blue, green, and yellow fountains all fall around the embattled task force,
okay,
punctuated by the massive white splashes of Yamato's 18-inch shells. Admiral Kurita has no identification charts for...
Oh, yeah. This is actually Kurita as the Admiral. That makes sense with the L's. Apparently it's literally L's for Kurita.
Escort carriers, and so assumes that the distant targets are fleet carriers. Commensurately, by scale, their escorts must either be battleships or cruisers. The Japanese forces therefore continue to load armour-piercing rounds, what will turn out to be a very fortuitous mistake for their targets for as long...
Because they overestimated what the enemy is. Because the actual main force completely effed off because they were just run by an idiot. Also, Caleb, it was die added in with the shells. Still kind of crazy. Like, that's just a thing. You're never going to see that in media, but it sounds amazing.
As it lasts. Nevertheless, the general attack is ordered. This promptly causes a bunch of confusion, as the fleet has just moved into a circular anti-aircraft formation.
Oh.
Now each division is supposed to attack at its own best speed.
So they're being pulled... So they're estimating that they're fighting a bunch of high-level cruisers and battleships, not assuming it's a bunch of, well, lower carriers and destroyers. They're loading up for armor piercing with ships so small that it might actually just go right through them. Also, Leech, Crossroads, most were scuttled later because of decontamination issues. Oh, okay, yeah. Because all the fallout, all the radiation from a nuke would probably do that. That makes sense. Dude. But now, according to this, all these guys who were in the correct formation for aircraft coming in are being pulled out of position for going on an attack run against what they think are battleships, not aircraft carriers.
But either way, it doesn't seem to change the odds all that much. Yamato itself is slightly slower than usual, after taking on several thousand tons of water due to bomb hits sustained during the same attacks that would sink Musashi.
I mean, that is impressive, though, that it could take several thousand tons of water and still keep going. On the other hand, with how big it is, that might actually be a drop in the bucket for all I know.
Although the Japanese have engaged with little hesitation, they are as surprised as the Americans to be fighting this battle. Although the escort carrier groups have been under sporadic air attack for over a week, these attacks appear to have been conducted by aircraft from the Japanese army, who, of course, have utterly failed to mention any of this to their counterparts-rivals-
And because the entire thing with the Japanese military was, if you're at the top, you're winning, and if you're at the bottom, you're cannon fodder. No one wants to be at the bottom, and rivalries turn toxic. So I'm assuming sharing the information was both an intelligence gap and one of those, we didn't take care of it. We're not going to acknowledge that. Let's see if they can just, it's fine. I'm assuming someone was aware they should have said it and just didn't. Oh my God. And Raw, to be fair to the Admiral, he made the right call, for he thought of leaving a force behind regardless, but his orders were not carried through. Yeah. Oh, God. Also, according to Necro and Chainsaw Man's, Oregon was turned into a sword. That's a choice.
Mortal enemies in the Imperial Japanese Navy. On the American side, the destroyer USS Johnston begins by laying down a smokescreen to cover the retreat and starts to zigzag to evade incoming fire.
Because they're not doing radar control. The only ship that would have had any type of advanced targeting would have been Yamato. The others were again using die packs, so just coloring the sky with smoke unironically gets rid of most of their targeting solution. Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot more sense in hindsight why smoke was so damn useful.
Fire, using both the black smoke from its funnels and the white smoke from its smoke generators to screen the escort carriers. USS White Plains is targeted by Yamato and a number of other ships, at least if the rainbow of reported splash colours is anything to go by. And within minutes, something explodes beneath the hull close to the keel, briefly knocking out electrical power and the starboard engine. Sources
and if the starboard engine, so there's more than one. Okay. It's probably not a mobility kill yet, but that's pretty bad all the same.
Differ quite greatly and vehemently on whether this was a cruiser shell or one of Yamato's 18-inch projectiles. If it was the latter, then this would be almost the longest range hit in history by a battleship or really any naval surface gun.
Damn.
But whoever fired it, it is only just a near miss. The damage to the machinery results in a huge column of black smoke for a while, and the Japanese ships assume that the carrier has been sunk.
And at the same time, the column of black smoke probably did a lot to not just distract them, but cover over any shots for additional targeting. Unless it was not just spreading out and going straight up, which would not be as helpful. But making them believe it's already sunk is definitely one thing.
Which allows White Plains to escape any further fire for the immediate future.
Because they thought it was out of commission, and they don't want to waste the shots.
As the various formations of the Imperial Japanese Navy break to attack, The 5th Cruiser and 10th Destroyer Divisions cut across the 3rd Battleship Division.
Oh, and you can see both the smoke screens, the rain squall, the shell splashes. Ah, so even if they're still visible, depending on the angle, they're covered from behind. The splashes are coming this way. They're moving into it. I see. So there's the smoke screen adding a little behind them, which they hopefully get in front of. There's the clouds coming in, and if they're looking down this angle... Wait, Johnston's going this way. Fires 5 grunts at... Oh. Yamato, Nagato, and Haruna cease firing due to lack of visibility. Only Kongo continues to fire on the escorts. Okay, there's a lot going in right now, man. And they're adding a lot of smoke, but the rain squall is probably going to be a lot of help here. Also, Caleb, those escort carriers were basically Liberty ships with flight decks bolted on. Oh, okay, that's what an escort carrier is. That also explains why the images all had them with a ton of just ship or planes basically strapped down to the top of it. And weren't Liberty ships especially not meant for warfare in advance? We're just kind of repurposed. Yeah, actually, that's probably why the bolted on comment happened. Oh, God.
Forcing Kongo to turn north to avoid collision. This puts her out of formation and on her own for the rest of the battle. But Kurita now decides this high-speed stern chase will make his destroyers burn too much fuel and orders them to drop back.
Oh.
The 10th Destroyer Division get the order just as they're getting into perfect flanking position on the American forces for a torpedo strike with their devastating long lances. But instead of launching, they dutifully obey, surrendering a chance to deal major damage. 2nd Destroyer Division is ordered to fall in behind 3rd Battleship Division, but as this means finding the Kongo, they surrender their position south of the main battle line as they head off north to go looking for the errant battleship.
Okay, so I kind of get the positioning on this one. So what was happening is since they're pulling back because they think it's a waste of fuel, probably limited resources then. They don't take the final hit because they also don't know where the rest of the group is, and they assume they're fighting much heavier targets rather than the smaller ones they actually are. And they're not aware of Kongo, so they're giving up the position and going into a worse one because they're trying to recover their forces. Okay.
As they head off north to go looking for the errant battleship. The Johnston begins firing at the closest Japanese ships, who respond by targeting it with accurate fire.
Oh.
Faced with an enemy whose largest gun turrets weigh more than the entire ship, Johnston decides that running is boring, and instead pulls a full 180-degree turn and charges straight back at the attacking force.
Seriously? So let me get this. I didn't realize how much the tonnage difference was. The gun was more than the ship. And they're like, fuck this, and just charges in. Oh my God. Oh, wow.
The destroyer Hoel is still following the carriers and also begins to engage at maximum gun range, receiving a hit from Yamato's secondary 6.1-inch guns to the bridge for its trouble.
Oof. Bridge shot.
Concentrating fire on the heavy cruiser Kumano, Johnston, somehow still alive,
Seriously?
is rewarded by seeing explosions and flames amidst the superstructure of the Japanese cruiser.
Oh, damn.
The destroyer's radar and Mark 37 fire control system are paying dividends early.
Oh, so they had fire control and radar where most of the Japanese ships didn't. You know what? I was talking about how important a lot of just air power would be at this one, but I'm thinking the big one here is radar is a bitch if your enemy doesn't have it and you do. Specifically, it's a bitch you're going to be hitting the opponent with. You can even say you're hitting them with the bitch stick.
Sprague orders the rest of the destroyer screen to follow suit, and soon Hoel and Heermann join their Fletcher-class compatriot in the attack, albeit starting somewhat behind the already charging Johnston.
Also, I'm going to bring up Federico's comment because I do think it plays into this one. I would like to point out the only reason they survived is because it wasn't HE. HE? High explosive? Yeah, because they were armor-piercing for battleships, so it would just go right through them when it hit. It would have to go through the waterline and then not take anything more. And Caleb, remember the Blackwatch? If they were Scots, they'd have probably descended from these guys. Hell yeah, man. Oh, dude.
The American escort carriers reached the first in a series of rain squalls, and Japanese fire drops off.
I'm just going to read Christian Jenkins' comment. U.S. and destroyer commanders during World War II were all the best flavor of crazy. Yeah, Unfrederick say it was HE is high explosives. Ah, good.
Significantly, as their optical systems are unable to see through the rain.
And they don't have radar, except for Yamato.
In time, almost any other major navy would simply have used their radar to keep spotting and firing, as Duke of York had done to Scharnhorst almost a year ago, and as the...
Wait, most navies had radar. And I mean, I remember in the Mark 14 torpedo, their comment was made that the BOO, Bureau of Ordnance, didn't even want radar in some things because, like, we don't need this. I'm assuming for completely corrupt and incompetent reasons, but that's completely different. How did the Japanese get away with not installing it on planes? Not planes, like on their main ships, but they thought it was enough to put it on the Yamato. I don't think it was that new of a technology or that restrictive or anything. Maybe I'm missing something, but I guess maybe it was. Ooh, and Raw One, thank you very much too. Liberty ships were transports. You can make one Liberty ship in 1 month. They were effective, but had metal fatigue issues past a year in Europe. In other words, you just need a body, and it doesn't need to last long. And if you don't sink it, it'll do it itself. Oh, God.
Battleships of the 7th Fleet had done to the Yamashiro mere hours earlier. But since only one ship in the center force has gunnery radar, the American ships gain some respite.
Yep.
Johnston, meanwhile, has managed to get within 5 miles of its target. And
also, you can see between the smoke being put out, for the forward side of the ship, right here, you can see where it's still visible, but as soon as they're just a little past it, the entire smoke screen becomes quite effective at just saying, fuck your vision. And after a point, it actually obscures everything quite effectively. Yeah. I'm assuming this is the one that was hit and was then belching smoke itself.
fires a full spread of 10 torpedoes. Minutes later, at least 2, possibly 3, tear the bow off the hapless cruiser Kumano.
Oh.
First blood, unbelievably, therefore goes to the Americans.
Huh.
The Suzuya also drops out of the engagement as it pulls alongside Kumano to assist. This brazen action further helps convince Kurita that the Johnston is actually a cruiser, since, obviously, no mere destroyer would dare risk this kind of charge, nor achieve this kind of damage.
Oh my god! They tricked the enemy admiral by being too insane. Oh my god, that's a Kurita for you. Getting tricked by an insane tiny ship.
In the confusion, Johnston manages another about-face and heads away to open the range with its torpedoes spent.
And if they get a good view of it, they're going to assume this is the wrong ship because they're looking for a cruiser, not a destroyer. So they might actually save shots if they got something on it. Oh my god. Granted, the only one who would actually do that would probably be the Yamato because they have fire control and radar.
To the south, Admiral Kincaid receives the first of many requests for help from...
Also, I'm being told by Christian, the reason for the radars being lacking is resource issues, and radar was and is expensive. Wait, it's expensive now still? Oh. And according to Taryn, Japan had it bad in the Pacific War, technology included. And even then, it was very rudimentary radar. And Raw mentioned, no, they thought radar was complex junk. For the Axis, they only got the technology near the end of the war. Why did people think radar was junk? Like, I honestly don't understand it. But granted, I'm looking at it from the vibes of now where it's like knowing where to fire before you fire is useful. Mostly because I know my aim when I have no idea what I'm firing at is usually the reason I don't have a gun, because I would be more likely to shoot myself in the foot than anything else. I don't mean when I'm trying to use a gun. I mean, like, if I ever just looked at one, it would somehow do that. My aim isn't bad, but I'm not a very fast shot.
The embattled Taffy 3. Having been led to believe that at least 4 modern battleships from the Third Fleet should be in the area, Kincaid starts firing off a series of urgent messages to Admiral Halsey, since his own older ships cannot possibly get there in time. However, Even if he can't save Taffy 3, there are still the ships of the landing force to consider, and he orders Admiral Oldendorf to extract 2 destroyer squadrons, 5 cruisers, and the battleships Tennessee, California, and Pennsylvania from wrapping up operations in Surigao Strait, and proceed at best speed north. Fuel and ammunition level concerns be damned.
On the one hand, yeah, they need the reinforcements. On the other hand, every time I hear fuel be damned, like the ammunition be damned, be careful with your shots. Fuel be damned. You run out of fuel, you take yourself out of the fight. Ugh.
The American escort carriers turn south, passing right through what would have been 2nd Destroyer Division's kill zone. But as a result of Kurita's orders, they and their long lances are still off to the north of the formation
they got
for
lucky.
Congo. However, Johnston's luck seems to have run out, as it is hit almost simultaneously by 3 18-inch shells and 3 6.1-inch shells from Yamato, which has decided
the one ship that actually had fire control and radar. Yeah.
to swat the irritating vessel. The smaller shells make a complete slaughterhouse of the bridge, and the splinters scythe through anyone out on deck. The larger shells smash through the portside engine room, crippling the ship and disrupting power to the rear guns. Thanks to a combination of low fuel stores and her light structure not initiating the fuses on the larger shells, the ship is crippled but not blown apart.
Oh shit, they actually got lucky. I mean, the captain is probably very dead at this point. Bridge being noped and everyone around it being splinter noped. Yeah. On the other hand, it doesn't sound like a mobility kill. If anyone could coordinate moving the ship at this point, I have no idea if secondary bridges were a thing at this time period. I have no idea what the chain of command would look like for this, but I'm hoping someone can figure it out, because that's... yeah.
Although Yamato dutifully records the sinking of the enemy cruiser. Instead, the ship
Wait. Oh, because they still thought they were looking for a cruiser, not a destroyer.
He records the sinking of the enemy cruiser. Instead, the ship drifts into another rain squall, and repair parties start to work on the radar and electrical systems so that it can re-engage the enemy with its 5-inch guns.
What?
Meanwhile, Hoel fires off half its torpedoes and reverses course, but is likewise struck by a wide variety of shells, causing much more significant damage than even that caused to Johnston.
Damn!
Leaving the second torpedo launcher as almost its only working system. To the south, Kincaid further orders every single aircraft currently in the air to divert to support Taffy 3, and for Taffys 1 and 2 to launch any and all operational aircraft remaining on deck or in their hangars in that direction as well.
Okay, so they did have some in reserve, but that doesn't matter if you assume you're going to probably get fucked if you don't. Also, Necro, fun fact, the Gato-class submarine was named after USS Gato, which was named after the common name for the cat shark. I didn't even realize there was a cat shark. I just thought it was a cat flat out. It's kind of awesome, though. Also, Mike, do I remember Emesis Blue? Well, there was another TF2 horror series, and it's called Don't Join Team Red If You Are Still Live. Can you react to the episode 1 to 5 today? Probably not, just because we're really built up right now, but it sounds really interesting. I think Emesis Blue, oddly enough, was the first reaction I did in a long time to TF2.
After a couple of minutes happily blazing away with its 5-inch guns and horribly abusing the natural cover system...
Yeah. Oh, also, we're going to bring up these comments quickly. So, Ra, Pilo, both, thank you guys. 2, actually, I'm going to read this. So, according to Leech, destroyers rarely have second bridge, not expected to survive. Yeah, I'm going to be honest, modern destroyers are kind of garbage because one hit and they go up in smoke because some genius made aluminum, which catches fire easily. Oof. The real MC of Pentagon Wars, James Gordon Burton, the radar sucks and kicked out the Air Force due to such thoughts. Wait, he actually thought radar sucks. He nearly sunk and overpriced the Bradley IFV, which was under budget. Oh my god. And Pilo, surprisingly, the madman who captained the Johnston survived to go down with his ship. He isn't detailed much here, but he was a real legend. So the ship didn't sink here, but it went later, and the captain survived long enough to do that. God damn.
Of the real world, Johnston meets Hoel and Heerman coming the other way, followed at a distance by the destroyer escort Samuel B. Roberts. Despite having only 40% the firepower and 3/4 of the speed of the larger Fletcher-class destroyers, and no automatic fire control, the captain of the Roberts has elected...
You know, seeing the picture of this right now, the not having a secondary bridge makes sense. There's just not enough space, man. Like, I'm surprised they did so much damage against the ships they did, because these do not seem like they're meant to do that much damage. Although maybe that's the point, because they were literally there just to help pick it out other things.
To follow the full-size destroyers with the words,
"This will be a fight against overwhelming odds from which..."
I want to turn that up. That's a little quiet.
Words,
"This will be a fight against overwhelming odds from which survival cannot be expected. We will do what damage we can."
Deciding that he hasn't had enough action for one day, Captain Evans of the Johnston orders another 180-degree about-face to give gunfire support to the new arrivals.
God damn! So he survived the bridge being hit, and yeah, they're going to go down. He's assuming they're basically making a suicide run. And he's being perfectly upfront about that. Balls of steel, man.
This time picking on the heavy cruiser Tournai. Hoel fires its remaining torpedoes at what turns out to be the Yamato. No hits are scored, but the giant battleship is forced to run to the north to evade, taking it out.
Not just everything they're saying about their cover, but getting rid of the only person who actually had radar and targeting beyond that. Of
the pursuit. In an ironic twist, the relatively low speed of American torpedoes compared to the long lances of the Japanese actually prolong this evasion, as the closing speed is so low. This keeps the Japanese flagship out of the fight for a considerable amount of time. With that done, Hoel makes a run for the rest of Taffy through...
Because they have to run for longer to evade them. Because they're going so slow that they can actually adjust. Oh my god. Oh, when being bad is actually a defense. Also, Raw, for details, Colonel Barton wanted to push his plane design, which can only carry bullets and a cockpit. When told it needed a radar, at least, he said it does not need overpriced junk. Goddamn, Burton is a bigger idiot than I can imagine. Because I'm pretty sure by most points of most wars, dropping bombs was the best thing you could do with a plane. And the dogfighting components was just if you got really lucky. I know current modern aircraft fights almost never even rely on that. Hell, I'm surprised I still put them in other than tradition.
As shells begin to explode all around it. Meanwhile, Heerman engages Haguro with its main battery and accidentally launches 7 torpedoes in the same general direction, before heading off to send a few shells and the last 3 torpedoes aboard at the Haruna, although the Japanese battleship manages to evade them all. Meanwhile, the USS Kalinin Bay, currently the rearmost ship, takes a direct hit from a battleship-grade shell, wrecking part of the hangar deck.
The hangar deck, too. So that actually might mean that any planes they did have are not going to be able to land. I don't think they're meant for sea landings, so probably not. They mentioned land landings. Unless I'm on the wrong side.
Roberts is hit by a stray shell that jams the torpedo mount. Up until now, it has held fire to avoid being spotted, but after some quick work by the crew, the Roberts is once again able to launch its torpedoes and picks the heavy cruiser Chokai as its target, before making best speed into the smoke and heading back to the carriers. Minutes later, Chokai takes at least one hit and starts falling back. Heerman tries to fall back to the carriers and ends up trading broadsides with Nagato for its troubles. The other destroyer escorts are also making attack runs, dropping their torpedoes and making back for the carriers, with the Dennis taking a number of shell hits in return. As the escort carriers chug away south, their single 5-inch rear guns are now cleared to open fire as the range closes.
Also, Frederick, I'm going to pull up your comment. Airier, you want to know why they added guns for close quarter fights? The F-4 Phantom in the Vietnam War is a big reason they could fight the enemy planes, and that with no gun, they couldn't use their missile. Huh. Okay. I just thought most fighting recently was at such a range that if you're not using a missile, you just basically can't hit them anymore. Although I guess that's because most dogfighting hasn't really happened in a long time.
Disappointed gunners on other weapons are informed.
Just wait a little longer, boys. We're suckering them.
I'm going to just raise this up because it's quite quiet.
On other weapons are informed.
Just wait a little longer, boys. We're suckering them into 40mm range.
Ooh.
It's not an idle boast either. The damaged Kalinin Bay is taking repeated hits from the 8-inch guns on Tonei and Haguro, but forces one of the cruisers back temporarily as it scores a couple of hits on one of the cruiser's forward turrets. Coming out of the other side of the smoke, Roberts encounters the heavy cruiser Chikuma, methodically blasting away at the escort carriers, especially the Gambier Bay. With the words,
Mr. Burton, you may open fire.
I want to hear that again.
With the words,
Mr. Burton, you may open fire.
Roberts matches its two 5-inch guns against the 10 8-inch guns of the cruiser.
I think the part about this that's most surprising me is how much fog of war is literally displayed in the narrative right now. Because everything is like, we double back, we were in the fog, we weren't seeing what's going on. The Yamato would have radar, but they were running from torpedoes that were slow enough that they had to keep running to make sure not to fly into them, rather than them passing and then being able to double back. So every other ship is kind of just literally fighting blind because the smokescreen was highly effective between that and the squalls. Radar for the win, man. Apparently that is legitimately the best thing you could do.
As well as its second.
Ooh, also, I'm going to pull this up because I think this is a comment I do want to make sure to call in. Where was it? Colonel Burton wanted to push the plane design, only the cockpit. Where was the next part? And Rob mentioned he was then transferred to the Army for a suggestion on destructive testing. He then pissed off the Army enough, he was told to retire or get court-martialed. Yeah, that would do it. And Russian MiGs could outmaneuver early air-to-air missiles without guns. The launching U.S. planes became sitting ducks. Early ones, yeah, that would probably do it. And missile technology was new and tactics had not updated at the time, so they did not think to engage in long-range combat until near the end of the war. It's why F-4s got 4-to-1 kills. Damn.
Battery. With a slower rate of fire and her attention divided, Chikuma doesn't immediately blast the Roberts from the water, and soon actually finds itself under a pincer assault as Heermann joins in from the other side. The Roberts empties its entire armor-piercing round supply and switches to HE. It runs out of HE, and it resorts to firing anti-aircraft shells. It then runs out of anti-aircraft shells, and is forced, as a last resort, to fire star shells, which
I don't know what a star shell is. Armor piercing, obvious. High HE, heavy explosive, okay. Anti-aircraft. I'm not expecting what that would actually be able to do, but it's still things hitting at high speed. Sure. Star shells. Is that like just lights at night or something? I actually have no idea what that is.
Actually have the unexpected advantage of setting off high-temperature phosphorus fires all across the superstructure.
Oh, they literally make what they hit into a star. War crime shells. Got it. And Pilo mentioned they're giant flares. Giant phosphorus flares, apparently. I'm just going to pull this up. So they were giant flares, projectiles used to illuminate at night. Star shell is phosphorus, drops on a parachute and lights up the area. Yeah, and now they lit up the ship by literally lighting it on fire. Did they still have wooden decks? I have no idea.
The embattled heavy cruiser is not in immediate danger of sinking, but is being badly mauled. Despite the light carrier's CVE.
And because of all the smoke probably coming off it, there's probably the initial assumption from allies on Kurita's side that this is a much bigger bit of damage because there's a lot more smoke than what the carrier might be reporting itself if they're in radio contact, which I assume they are because they're getting orders.
Designation being widely interpreted across the fleet as combustible, vulnerable, and expendable, the fusillade of armor-piercing rounds, intended for much larger fleet carriers, which the Japanese still think that the escort carriers are, means that a great many hits are simply passing right through them.
Oh.
Meanwhile, the continuing hail of...
Because they're getting holes in the side, and unless it hits anything damaging on the way through, it doesn't expend the damage. Because they're assuming high armor, so when it hits something, any breaking of the armor might be useful. But they're not doing that. Oh, jeez. Oh, man. I really hope there's some kind of recording or historical record of Admiral Kurita when he learns that he was getting all of this happened when he wasn't fighting the enemy battle group. He was fighting the destroyers and Liberty ships that were made into light cruisers, or not light cruisers, light carriers, and only them because they were just left behind. Oh, God. This just... Oh, I can see why this video is called Odds. What are those? Because the odds would so much be in here. It's like a bookie wouldn't take a bet for this side, man. And it's a good thing if they didn't.
Fire from the trailing carrier's 5-inch guns begins to score even more hits on some of the leading Japanese cruisers.
Yep.
But at the same time, the trailing carrier USS Gambier Bay is suffering from multiple hits from the Chikama, which, after a few salvos, finally realizes the small size of its enemy. Now the range is closed and switches to high explosive.
And there goes the leeway.
The Johnston emerges from a smokescreen to find the Haruna at close range. So, of course...
Also, I'm being told by Raw it does count as war crimes to use these. Yeah. Oh, it does not count as war crimes. Oh, we still use Starflare illumination rounds, just not on ships unless you're in open war with other factions. Makes sense.
It shoots up the battleship superstructure whilst ducking back into the smoke, as Congo tries to take it out using its main battery. 3 more heavy cruisers from further down the Japanese line begin to blast away at the now disabled Gambier Bay. Throughout this period, and beyond into the rest of the battle, aircraft of various types and loadouts are crisscrossing the skies in desperate harassment attacks, with the pilots having to play constant games of guess the carrier to decide where to land as escort carriers are hit, sunk, disappear in columns of shell splashes, or are forced to evade at angles to the wind that make landing on them impossible. Across the flight decks of...
So they're close enough where everything is going to shit. I mean, yeah, these are not hyper long-range flights like we'd have now with refueling. This is much more, you get so long and you better get more, otherwise you got to get back to land.
Just the embattled Taffy 3, but the supporting Taffy 1 and Taffy 2 further south, deck crews rapidly begin to ignore all technical protocol and simply accept, rearm, refuel and relaunch any incoming American aircraft with the American star painted on them.
I'm honestly wondering if the wrong plane might have tried to land on the wrong side's ship. You'd think that wouldn't happen, but if there's enough smoke, I wouldn't be surprised if someone started coming in before realizing what the hell was about to happen.
The USS Manila Bay, in the next group south of Taffy 3, services aircraft from 11 different squadrons that aren't attached to her own flight group, and at one point has representatives from no less than 4 other carriers' air groups on her flight deck at the same time.
But they're handling it, though, which is impressive in its own right.
Having successfully evaded the battleships, Johnston responds to calls for assistance from the escort carriers.
I'm honestly still surprised the Johnston's around now. That's insane.
And appears near the Gambier Bay. Seeing the ship under attack by a heavy cruiser, it promptly shoots up this ship as well, because of course it does.
Yeah.
However, an 8-inch shell takes out what's left of Hoel's engines, and the ship is rapidly overwhelmed by incoming fire. The order to abandon ship is given 10 minutes later after trading fire with a Tonei-class cruiser, and 15 minutes after that, the ship rolls over and sinks.
But people were able to get out. I mean, at least they got the order out in time. I'm assuming not everyone probably did, but they got the order out.
Hoel clearly not sharing quite the same level of luck as Johnston. Kalinin Bay is also in trouble, trading fire with Japanese destroyers and taking hits from both them and cruisers at the same time. Unlike the Gambier Bay, however, it does not appear that these ships have realised they need to switch to high explosive from armour-pierced.
Oh, they weren't sharing that insight. Oh, okay. So I was to figure out once one of them knows, someone would probably send it up the chain. But they probably were doing strict radio controls where the only person giving out orders was the guy at the top. So they probably weren't sending out extraneous reports unless they asked. I mean, I'm assuming on that one. I could be very wrong, but the only other reason I could think is just it hasn't made it to them yet, that the ships are much smaller than they estimated. Also, according to Ra, the other side did not have carriers in this battle group, you think? It doesn't sound like it, no. So that probably would mean there's probably no one landing on the wrong side. And now that I'm thinking back to some of the earlier maps, we saw, yeah, it was just battleships, cruisers, and destroyers. Also, Taryn, I'm getting Poland Insanity vibes from that destroyer. Honestly, I don't know what to say with this thing. It's just like, how the fuck is it still alive? It's like one of those, we're still alive? I don't know, man. It's a meme in its own right.
And despite being riddled with shellfire, the ship stays afloat, despite this rather unequal battering going on for another 20 to 30 minutes.
Damn.
A lookout points out to Captain Evans aboard the Johnston that a 7-strong formation of Japanese destroyers is closing on the carriers from behind. What do you think happens? Of course,
they made the smart move and decided to warn the carriers and they could evade. Yeah, nah, they're going full-on Leroy Jenkins on this one, man.
Of course, the Johnston swings around to engage the entire flotilla. And despite taking several more hits, Johnston successfully forces away the first 2 ships, which leads to the entire squadron taking a detour to avoid the single pugnacious ship.
Oh my god. I think the alternate title for this video should be not Battle of Samar, what are the odds? Or more, Johnston, the ship too angry to die. Or like IRL Doomslayer. Oh my god. According to Ross, some ships did not have radio and depended on flags to communicate. I mean, I knew flags to communicate was a thing, but I thought that was more like civilian at this level. I thought radio was like, that wasn't a new technology at this time period. I'm pretty sure that would have been around for what, 50 years at this point? 40 years? I don't actually know. I think it was 1800s where it came out. It might have been 50. How did they not? They didn't. The one place, like, I could see planes not having radio. I could see lighthouses not having radio because lighthouse, nice to have it, but you don't need it as much. But a warship at sea where visibility is the thing that you need to fight against the most, that doesn't make sense not to have radio on. Okay. I guess it was, but people mentioned that there was a lot of issues with technology on the Japanese side, so maybe that was just the issue altogether.
It will take the Japanese destroyers almost 3/4 of an hour to work around to a Johnston-free firing position, and as a result, all their torpedoes will miss. During the fun, the Johnston nearly runs into Heermann and Roberts, who are trying to make some sense of the confused mass of shipping, whilst continuing their battering of Chikima with their remaining ammunition.
Oh, shit.
However, the Japanese battleships and cruisers now come to Chikima's aid, and within 10 minutes, the Roberts is knocked out of action, as the Japanese ships firing at her also belatedly switch to high explosive.
They're catching on.
And within minutes of this change, several massive holes are blasted into her side, and she begins to sink. The embattled heavy cruiser withdraws, but will later sink on her way home.
If they're out of the combat zone, they probably could tell it's happening and probably evacuate in time, but damn.
Around about this time, something happens to the cruiser Chokai.
What?
Reports conflict as to whether the hit is scored by a 5-inch gun from the USS White Plains, or if it's a bomb hit from one of the recently arrived aircraft,
oh, they caught
or
up.
whether it's a combination of both. But in any case, The relatively small explosion causes the pure oxygen fuel on one of the Chokai's torpedo banks to detonate, causing...
Oh. Yeah, that's going to do a thing. Basically, you don't want to ignite oxygen. To give an idea, most of the air we breathe, we think of it as air, oxygen, it's all the same thing. No, the vast majority of it is nitrogen because it's an inert gas. I'm not even sure what percentage is. I think it's a tiny percent of what the actual air is actually oxygen. Because if it was any higher, we would actually go crazy because we have really weird effects when people are too oxygenated. Let's see, percent of O2 in air. Okay, here we go. It's 20% oxygen, argon, carbon dioxide, and 78% nitrogen, according to AI Assist. But those numbers sound close enough that, it's taken directly from Wikipedia. So yeah, roughly 21% is oxygen and 78% nitrogen and trace others. Yeah. Oxygen is the reason things burn. 20% is enough to make fire a thing. All of it going up at once, and it's probably compressed as well, so it's a lot of expansion on top of everything else. Yeah. Oh, that's going to be big.
A catastrophic explosion that forces the ship to heel out of line almost immediately.
Yeah.
The ship will be found limping away and sunk by aircraft later in the day.
One more down.
With Gambier Bay and Hoel sinking and Roberts not much longer for this world, the Johnston is now set upon by 4 cruisers and a number of destroyers. The ship's crew patch holes as fast as they can, but the ship is literally gradually being taken apart by repeated salvos. The fact that this particular set of Japanese ships is still using armor-piercing instead of high explosive is the only saving grace.
Because if they're not using radio, they're using flags and apparently not even lights for signaling. Granted, with the smokescreen, they might not be able to at this point. Yeah. Also, Ra mentioned, anyway, radio mainly serve as long-range communication for the numbers of channels they can handle at once, especially since Japanese radios were underpowered. So they probably only had them in the Yamato because it's the big guy who no one's going to take down, so they could probably spread the information there with flags normally. But flags are beaten by smokescreens, so they can't spread the information. And no one else would have it, so they'd all be getting the same channel probably. And it's a new technology, so they probably don't have a lot of it.
Meanwhile, various aircraft from Taffy 3 launched piecemeal, along with the arrival of a concentrated strike formation from Taffys 1 and 2 further south, begin to make runs at various Japanese capital ships, with many aircraft machine gunning their targets once the more conventional anti-shipping weapons are expended.
Hey, if it works.
This assault considerably disrupts the Japanese formation.
I would honestly agree. Being shot with machine gun fire would probably distract me a bit. Also kill me. I have a weakness to bullets.
Heermann has also been under heavy attack for about 20 minutes by now.
But survived.
With the captain at one point wishing for
a periscope with which to see over
Oh my god. Okay, every time he goes to these audio recordings, they're so quiet.
this wall of water.
Point wishing for
A periscope with which to see over this wall of water.
God.
caused by a near continuous barrage of shell splashes.
They were just missing that much? Or is it getting close enough not to matter? Oh god. Also, I'm just going to pull up your comment. Pilot 1, thank you too. The White Plains may be only carrier to defeat a cruiser by gun duel. Wait, it was a carrier! Assuming that was its shot. Also, Resender, I don't know what movie this is from. There's a lot of movies I haven't seen, so I don't know the reference. Sorry about that one. You think they could have used flares? That also how my gran once chased a burglar from her bar by firing a flare into his leg. Yeah, that would do it for me. Oh, also we're one way for doubling it. Thanks, Taryn.
But the ship gamely exchanges fire with Tone until ordered back to lay smoke for the surviving escort carriers. Kurita, convinced that his opposition is significant and not realizing that Heermann is the only fleet destroyer still operational,
because fog of war, or I guess the smoke of war in this point, is literally fucking with his judgment to the point of actually hurting him more than the enemy is. And the enemy is not doing nothing either. Also, I'm being told by Resender that's The Martian. Oh, I heard it's a good movie. Never got around to seeing it, though.
orders the fleet to cease attacking and regroup to the north. Thus, just when the Japanese have stripped away almost any escort, and with it much hope of survival, they withdraw. In the background,
Although, on their side, what they know is they don't see the enemy. The enemy is doing a good job of not dying. They're missing. And it seems like they only got a handful of kills compared to some significant targets being shot down on their end. And they think there's a lot more coming in. And now they see aircraft coming in, which is putting direct pressure on them with all the machine gun fire, thinking, okay, they have heavier cruisers coming into range now. They weren't there earlier, so they must be coming in, which they were right about. It probably feels like there's a lot more pressure coming in on them, and he just doesn't know the details. I said it before, and I'll say it again. I want a moment where someone lets him know, if he survives this, exactly what he was facing, so they could just have that moment of, I'm sorry, all of that was what? Just one destroyer fucking with us? Like, that is utter incomprehension levels of, I want to see this. Ooh, Unteran, you just rewatched it recently. Definitely recommend to me and my wife. Honestly, I want to do it, but I'm not sure it's her thing. She's not really into space as much as I am. I am, though, which is weird that I haven't seen it then. On the other hand, I got my wife to watch Dune. I'll take it.
the flaming wreck of the Gambier Bay finally slips beneath the waves.
Yeah.
In the air, some aircraft are using their loads of small 100-pound bombs and their gun armament to try and disrupt or detonate torpedoes launched by Japanese destroyers and cruisers as parting gifts.
I mean, I guess a bomb could do it if they just get enough metal close enough, but shooting into water is a notoriously bad idea. I only know this because Mythbusters did a test. This is way after Mythbusters. I guess shooting into water wasn't something people did a lot at this time period. Although I think the older the bullet is and the more spherical it is, the better it does in water. I think actually the testing, and this is very much multi-decades old information at this point, musket rounds had the best penetration into water, but the more high velocity the bullet was, the less penetration it had, the faster it lost speed. Something about the shape, I'm not entirely sure though. I guess the bomb might be able to trigger it if they got too close to detonate it, or if it exploded and triggered the torpedo itself. Also, are torpedoes that visible in the water? They probably skim the surface to make sure they hit. Oh, okay.
With some degree of success. With 3 heavy cruisers already...
Also, I'm being told by Resender that the Martian is older than the relationship with his fiancée, which he's marrying in 27 days. Considering the average relationship time I've heard about for most people, who are not me, is 6 months to a year and a half to 2 years at most, that's not saying much. I dated my wife for 8 years, so I'm not exactly the right person to say anything.
Sunk or crippled, and increasingly large and fierce air attacks convince...
Oh, and Dragoon. They were 10 feet below the water line. Oh, not deep at all. Did not actually know that.
Convincing Kurita that he must be facing fleet units. He also learns of the destruction of the Southern Force during the night, and that at least major elements of the Third Fleet, especially its battleships, are not actually here, but may well be on their way back. Despite none of...
So this is the moment I was waiting for. So he learned that, oh shit, we lost people in the south, part of the pincer failed, and some of the people I thought I was fighting haven't arrived yet, and they're about to be here. Yeah, oh god. Also, Caleb, Samuel B. Roberts, the destroyer escort that fought like a battleship. Yeah. Darren mentioned The Martian came out in 2015. And Recenter, you've been there? Been with them since 2019. 'Tis a good year. I think I married my wife the year after that. Yes, we had a COVID wedding. And no one got COVID, oddly enough. My family had it right before that. No, actually, I think they had it 2 years after.
Of his battleships actually having received any major damage during this engagement, he orders the fleet to withdraw completely. In the brief moments of silence, one American sailor near Admiral Sprague is heard to yell,
Damn it, boys, they're getting away.
I need to read that one again.
Admiral Sprague is heard to yell,
Damn it, boys, they're getting away.
Because that was the destroyer leader saying that. Oh man, the Taffies actually made a bunch of battleships retreat. Oh, dude.
45-minute struggle against vastly unequal odds.
Oh shit, that was only how long? Yeah, it started at 6 something, it's now 9:45. This wasn't even it was barely a few hours.
Aboard the Johnston, the order is given to abandon ship. The ship goes down 25 minutes later at 10 minutes past 10, taking 186 of her crew, including the gallant Captain Evans, with her. He will receive a posthumous Medal of Honor for his actions.
So they didn't get people off the ship in time. That's disappointing. I mean, people did say the captain survived until the ship went down, but I was hoping he wouldn't go down with it, but damn. Also, Reset, you're in a long-distance relationship from Belgium to UK, about 500 kilometers away. Just weird to hear that's a long distance, considering that's closer than most of my family is right now. Granted, I'm also not in a relationship with most of my family. That would be I might be in West Virginia, but that's not the way it works. That's more Mississippi and Arkansas. We're going to ignore that.
Its last stand, the ship still managed to draw off considerable fire that would otherwise have likely led to the loss of more American ships.
Yeah.
The various scattered aircraft are now making their way back after launching various attacks on Kurita's withdrawing ships. Some are forced to ditch through lack of fuel, having launched with barely any in the first place.
Yep.
Others find a carrier, any carrier, to land on. Others still make for some of the barely functional landing strips that the invading troops have established.
Oh, so they had actually landed at this point. So they managed to cover just long enough for someone to make it in. Okay.
A final postscript to the battle comes as a late wave of Japanese aircraft appear and begin a 40-minute-long attack. Every surviving escort carrier except Kitkun Bay suffers damage. One incoming flight of Japanese aircraft make their attack runs, and then a zero kamikazes into the flight deck of USS St. Lo, punching through into the hangar and setting off a catastrophic series of fires and explosions that will see the ship sink within an hour.
Damn.
Another 2 kamikazes smash into Kalinin Bay, but luckily don't set off anything too explosive.
It seems like the kamikazes were basically there and hoping they hit something important. Also, reason I mentioned, in Europe, 500 kilometers can take you to half a dozen countries. That's insane to me. I mean, I can go 500 miles in almost any direction, and I think I might hit Canada. No, I'm almost certain I would hit Canada. Probably around the 400 mile mark. That depends if I'm looping roads too.
During the battle to the north, the southern group of escort carriers had also been subject to a concentrated air and kamikaze attack, along with possible submarine activity, causing varying degrees of damage.
So they had a different
4 pilots from
aspect
St. Lo, returning from a strike, land at the Dulag airstrip and are promptly handed carbines, given a foxhole, and told to help repel a Japanese infantry counterattack.
They finished the air fight and then told, we need more guns. We need more men. You're both.
With that job done, with the aid of some stacked boxes and buckets full of petrol, they rearm and repair their aircraft and then head back out to land on other ships.
So they had to repair the ship, the planes themselves, after fighting off an invasion on ground. Oh, God. Also, Bill, you put some videos in the weird ARG round in the suggestion box. Nice. Probably won't be able to get to it anytime soon, but there's something I do want to get to eventually. Ooh, and I love Yandex. Hi, Airier, do you take requests for reactions? As I can give you interesting channels? Normally, yes, but right now, that is utterly swamped, so we probably aren't going to be taking many more for a while unless they're guaranteed videos. Right now, we're actually working through some of them, and they're pretty cool.
One pilot, during all this, vanishes off with a patrol of troops and returns with a new wing from somewhere to replace the ragged collection of scrap that one of his own had been turned into. Replacing it before...
I'm sorry. He landed with one wing? It held together long enough, apparently.
Heading off himself. With that, the battle is over.
What the fuck, man?
During the latter stages of the battle, furious messages asking for reinforcement were flying back and forth over the radio.
Yeah.
But the first help from Third Fleet doesn't turn around until almost an hour after Kurita's forces have already begun their withdrawal.
Insert random joke about military readiness an hour after it's needed.
A few hours later...
Also, Golden, you've heard of people landing with engine failure? No, here's the thing. Engine failure, I can understand. You can land a plane without an engine. It's really hard. You need a long runway. And at that point, you're probably better off trying to land in the water and swimming from the wreck. But not having a wing is immediate not flying. I have no idea how they were able to land with it as it was described. The only reason I'm doing the thing without the engine is because there's plenty of gliders you can land in. It's basically the same principle. All planes can probably do something without engines. How well is debatable to almost impossible, but functionally, technically, it's a chance. Without a wing, though, you're fucked regardless.
Much of the decoy Northern force is finally cornered and sunk by the combined strike power of Third Fleet's large carriers. A tragic final act plays out as further communication and navigation errors mean that many survivors from sunken destroyers and escort carriers aren't picked up until the 27th, 2 days later, resulting in many men dying from exposure, dehydration, and shark attacks after the enemy have withdrawn.
Of course, shark attacks.
Overall, however, the score sheet was indeed almost as hopelessly lopsided as one would.
So there's Japanese, and there's the American forces.
Would have expected going into the battle, only the casualty ratios are entirely the wrong way round. The US Navy has lost 2 escort carriers, and one of those had been to a kamikaze strike rather than surface attack, 2 destroyers, and a destroyer escort, along with...
And can you imagine how this would have gone down if the Johnston had survived? I mean, we probably wouldn't have had to have any further fight. It would have just gone on to invade Japan itself. And I do intend to say it probably would have just gone up a river. Somehow someone would have attached tank treads to it, and it would have just finished the entire battle itself. Who needs a nuke when Johnston could just drive on land at that point? Nothing stops it. With how crazy things have been going in this video, I'm not entirely sure that would be entirely a joke. Entirely, even. Also, Tensu, to break your mind some more, an F-15 flew, I want to say 10 miles without a wing. Damn. And Darren, insert joke about Kurita from Battletech here. Oh no, I think we've been getting one giant one this entire video. And we have an F-15 with one wing completely blasted off. Damn.
With 1 destroyer, 3 destroyer escorts, and a number of the other escort carriers damaged. In return, this tiny force had managed to turn back the entire center force, causing the Japanese to lose 3 heavy cruisers outright, with another effectively permanently out of action, with varying levels of damage to the surviving battleships, the other cruisers, and destroyers.
And so this was not the battle where the Yamato did go down. That does happen eventually, though.
Not including the losses to the center force from submarine and air attack prior to the main action. The entirety of Taffy 3 would be awarded a Presidential Unit Citation, as well as numerous awards for acts of individual bravery.
Yeah.
Although the battle would not have gone the way it did had it not been for the astonishing bravery of the escorting destroyers and destroyer escorts, it was also a salutary lesson in the number of other factors. The lack of radar and advanced fire control on the Japanese side had badly hampered them, with a...
I think that's a bit of an underestimation. I don't think a lack of radar and fire control hampered them. I think it utterly screwed them out of being able to do the thing their ship is meant to do. Like, unironically, as soon as they had any kind of ability to hit, they were starting to take things down. But they were hampered by, sorry, I'm using the same word now. They were utterly fucked by lack of information sharing because radio was not something they were using heavily except for long range, and that was not really something they were sharing between themselves. So when they found out, oh shit, this is where we're actually fighting, they didn't switch to the main shells until others found it out on their own, giving the American forces time to not die and do more damage to them in the process. And then there was all of the not needing to know where the enemy is to shoot at them, miss, and make everything colorful and bright and pretty. Because they were color coding their shots to know where to aim. And as soon as a smoke screen came into play, they don't even have that. So they're guessing where they're shooting. If they're shooting, then. Ooh, and Joe74RO. What's up, man? New subscriber? YouTube out of the show, the Gundam streams. Nice. Greetings from Argentina. Ooh, that's cool. I have no idea where people are coming from, but that's pretty awesome whenever I hear new people from those locations. Just places I haven't been. It's really fun.
Disproportionate number of hits scored by the main and secondary batteries of Yamato alone, which was the only ship with some sort of radar in the fleet.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that the American ships could maneuver and rapidly reacquire an accurate firing solution also meant that they had more freedom of action, whilst the Japanese ships tended to...
Because not only would they have to reassess their firing, every time they moved out of position, they'd have to reassess. And every time the enemies can move around, they'd have to reassess. And between the smoke screen and just their lack of radar and fire control, it's actually worse for them. Yeah, no wonder the Yamato is the only one to actually hit anything. Ooh, and Rob, I'm going to pull up your comment. One, thank you very much, too. Yamato was sunk by planes as it was going to Okinawa to be decommissioned to serve as a land gun turret. Oh, that's just insult to injury. Oh, wow. And Vidrigo. To be fair, if I was in charge of Japan, I would have avoided either attacking America by faking to appease them or attack even harder than Peak Harbor or Pearl Harbor. A lot of it, though, was triggering... The Pearl Harbor idea wasn't bad. The reason it wasn't utterly catastrophic is because most of the carriers were not there. If they had done it earlier, it would have utterly destroyed America's fleet at the time and set back operations months to at least a year, if not more. But the vast majority of the forces were not there, so a surprise attack was heavily effective against none of the targets they wanted to hit. Yeah. And then there's all the conspiracy theories about how much of that was actually something people knew, because Roosevelt at the time, was it Roosevelt? I think it was Roosevelt, knew that an attack was incoming because of intelligence they had, and then they just let it happen. Not that they knew Pearl Harbor was going to happen, but that something was going to, and this was his reason to get involved in World War II, like the Lusitania was for World War I. But that's also not entirely confirmed, and at this point, it's so old, it doesn't really matter too much.
Broad straight line or broad sweeping motions that made them far easier targets, especially for torpedoes. Their lack of good intelligence also meant that they vastly overestimated the size of their foes for far too long, hails of armor-piercing shells doing comparatively little damage compared to the high explosive that they should have been using. In addition, the long fuses on many Japanese armor-piercing shells designed for diving hits against capital ships meant that a lot of shell hits that actually contacted the American ships didn't explode or would only do so after the shell had punched clean through the ship and out the other side.
Which gives them time to patch it, because that's still easier than getting rid of a chunk of the ship or getting rid of a hole in the ship. One is a little more dealable,
resulting in relatively little damage. The rapid demise of the Roberts and Gambier Bay once their respective attackers had switched to high explosive gives some idea of how the battle could have gone if this one critical change had been made much earlier. Finally, once again, the quality of the crews shows through. Particularly in the case of Admiral Kurita, who appears to have committed so many basic errors as a fleet commander that it would almost have made more sense if he was secretly an American spy.
Oh god, that was actually a thing? The people actually... I'm sorry, that's... Oh, that's definitely a way to go down. You're so incompetent, people think you're a spy. I'm glad it's not just the American Bureau of Ordnance that had that entire concept going in. There's like, which side are they working for? Apparently the incompetence wasn't just there. It was everywhere. Oh my god. Ah, what did I hit? Okay.
The lack of radar and advanced fire control only ship could maneuver more freedom of actions. Their lack of good bows for far damage. The long ships
Not sure what happened there, but okay.
A lot of shell hit mode, resulting in Roberts and Gambier little damage. Finally, particularly errors as a fleet commander,
listen to this part again.
That it would almost have made more sense if he was secretly an American spy, given that almost every order he issued after the initial one to open fire seems to almost have been calculated to minimize his own chances of success.
In other words, Battletech has this historically accurate. Kurita, defeating Kurita since always. Oh, God.
And maximize the relatively few American advantages. Conversely, the commanding officers of the ships of Taffy 3, although they seem to have accepted that they were almost certainly all going to die, were equally determined to cause as much damage as possible to the enemy and would maintain strict fighting discipline right up until their ships were literally shot out from under them, resulting, in combination with the factors above, in a completely unexpected tactical and strategic victory.
Yep.
That's it for this video. Thanks for watching.
It's so weird to hear this because I'm used to this from Frostbite's videos.
If you have a comment or suggestion for it.
God damn, man. I know this is the Battle of Samar V, but I said it before and I'll say it again. This is not the Battle of Samar. This is Johnston's no good, horrible... Actually, wait, what the hell? We're winning day. Oh my god. Oh, I love this. I absolutely love this. This is amazing. And just... I heard Johnston was something I've seen reference to as the most fightingest ship. I get it now! I'm just disappointed that they even tried to abandon ship, but they weren't able to get off in time. I'm assuming the other ships that tried to bail out also probably didn't have that much luck. And with what they said due to their own issues, people who bailed out probably still died en masse. Horribly. Sharks. Yeah, that sucks. But dear God, man, there's so much going on here. And so many mistakes. Because it wasn't just the Japanese side. While Kurita fucked up more, everything the American admiral did before it's like, we've won this battle. Let's ignore it and move away. It's like both sides were fighting themselves and then the enemy in that order. Oh, man. You guys know the deal. There's a link below to the original video. This was awesome. Hit it up. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.